Ahoy there folks, I'm Captain Benzie and welcome back to another developer Q&A video for EVE Echoes. Like last week, we've got more than 4 questions. Devs have actually given us 6 this week, which is pretty interesting. There's some really cool stuff in here and some really infuriating stuff. It's a nice little mix for people who like ranty Benzie and people who do actually want to see EVE Echoes improve in one way or another. And the Venn diagram of that isn't 2 separate circles, by the way. There is definite crossover between people who want EVE Echoes to be better and still enjoy ranty Benzie. I hope it's actually closer to a circle than 2 separate ones. But hey, I'm now rambling. Why am I rambling? Because I've just done a 6-hour car journey back from Masuna to Bulawayo and I am blasted tired. Not quite as bad as last week because I did get a decent night's sleep last night. But hey, no further ado, let us jump straight into the dev Q&A for the 4th of April through to the 10th of April. Question number 1 then, what about adding a setting that will protect you from firing in low-sec on gates and stations, because many people lose their ships because they misclick and fire and police destroy them? Now, before we read Cloud's response here, allow me to rephrase this question, remembering that I'm attacking the question, not the player. What about adding a setting that will protect me from firing in low-sec on gates and stations, because I lost my ships because I misclicked and fired and the police destroyed me? Like an idiot. It happens. Believe me, it happens to all of us. I've done it myself. I'm sure every single person listening to this, with the exclusion of those people who never do anything wrong in EVE and have apparently never lost a ship in their life because they're so damn perfect. Ultimately, I think, where's the fun in that? But hey, ultimately, that is what this question boils down to. Low-sec is supposed to be dangerous. That includes for you too. If you're an idiot, lock onto someone and shoot back at them. That's on you. Next question, please. But before we do, what's Cloud's response? There is a notification that requires players to read and confirm before they can fire. Yeah, absolutely. Unless you've already had that notification and you've gone, don't show again. At which point, again, that's on you. Next question. Question number 2, I'd love to see the lines between PvP and PvE blurred even further. Wouldn't we all? That's kind of the point of EVE. Would you consider allowing small groups of pirate faction NPC ships to use interdiction spheres and appear in nullsec outside of cosmic anomalies such as at gates and celestials? And oh boy, yes! Hell yes! One of the coolest things you might notice if you play EVE Online is that as you're jumping through the lower end of high-sec and low-sec, you may actually spot pirate fleets occasionally gravitate around the gate. Heck, in EVE Online, Catskull is based in a 0.7, 0.8 security system, and we occasionally get these pirate frontier bases appear in our system that then spawn rats. Those rats warp to stations, they warp to gates, and they will attack players, and some of them are actually really quite scary. The diamond rats specifically hit like a truck. Like genuinely, taking a hurricane out, I struggled to take out 2 kestrels and a bantam, for crying out loud. These are dangerous rats. And it makes the world feel alive because the pirates aren't just these random ships that happen to sit in conveniently organised pockets of space. They're an actual organisation that are moving around and doing stuff. So having pirates on gates and celestials, cosmic anomalies, you know, having the pirates move around outside that would be amazing. And it's not as dangerous as some people think. Like, you know, I'll be honest, there are times when, for crying out loud, when I first moved my Tengu to Thera, as I was jumping one of the last gates in low-sec before jumping into the Thera wormhole, I nearly cacked a brick because suddenly my overview was full of reds and I thought, oh lord, I'm in a gate camp. No, it wasn't. It was a load of blood raiders essentially being attacked by Concord, and it was the most incredible thing to see. And players can take part in that as well. You can get loot, you can help Concord, lots of cool stuff going on there. Absolutely agree with this, and I honestly agree that, yeah, I do think pirates in nullsec, even the ones in cosmic anomalies, should use interdiction spheres for what it's worth. It makes them just that little bit scarier. There are plans, says Cloud, to add more pirates to the mining belt. Whether to add them at Stargate is to be determined. And this is going to upset a lot of people, but it needs to happen. Adding pirates to mining belts, I think a lot of people are of the opinion that, oh no, this is awful, it means that if I undock to go mining, I might have to shoot something. Let's be fair. First of all, every industrialist in the game has at least one character who is a combat character, because it's impossible to make enough ISK to turn your own ovens on if you don't have a ratter. Every industrialist has a ratter, and every industrialist also has a corp full of mates that are going to be happy to come out. Like, genuinely, all jokes aside, you see this in EVE Online all the time, that if someone is sitting in a ship that for some reason doesn't have any combat potential, they'll often say, hey, rats in third belt, please come and clear, and someone will undock from a station, jump out there, clear those rats, grab the loot, and off they go kind of thing. It's a cool little competitive system. Are they going to be in high sec? Yes, I hope so. I hope they're weak enough that they can destroy someone who's AFK, and strong enough that they... so strong enough that they can destroy someone who's AFK, but weak enough that they can essentially be destroyed just with Adventures drones. Because that's kind of the point. For the high-sec rats, at least. And you know what? That also really, really helps with botting, because the botters mostly have their script set up that the second anything hostile appears on grid, they warp away. Now, every time a rat spawns, all the botters are going to dock up. That's pretty cool, right? And if the script has to be changed, well, there's going to be ways around that as well. And I think that's a really good way of doing a lot of things. Scaling difficulty rats in mining belts, it forces miners to actually move further afield. It forces miners to occasionally fit tank. It forces miners to work together with combat pilots or work together in a fleet in order to clear those rats together, because let's be fair, a flight of cover to twos, all armed with drones, can do a lot of damage. So it's not a huge issue, but what it does do is just make sure that everyone is at least somewhat attentive. It makes mining, rather than straight up ignore everything passive, just, you can still do it really delicately. Like, people say, oh, but I like to mine because it's completely AFK. People do the same in EVE Online. You just kind of notice when rats spawn and you just kill them. Like, as long as the rats aren't left alone on your ship for 30 minutes, you're fine. If you put your phone down and walk away for 30 minutes and come back and your ship's dead, well, you're playing a game. Even if it's AFK, you should have to kind of at least keep one eye partially on it, like check once across every 60 seconds. Is that too much to ask? If your boss is standing right next to you, then maybe. But hey, again, it's a game. The point is to play it, not just to, undock and then put it down and let it do its own thing. But apparently the devs disagree, because we now have nanocores that do all that for you. I don't know, and I imagine we'll see, because this is being added, we'll have nanocores that do actually, go for the mining like they promised. It does help a lot of different ways in mining. I'm not going to go into the full details now because this video is going to be too long. We are going to move on to question 3. I'm just going to say before we do, I am very happy that that's going to happen, and ultimately any miner who seriously considers the state of mining and wants the whole of mining in EVE Online to be good should see this as a good thing. It is a good thing. You might think, oh, but now I'm going to be shot at. Yeah, but not really. At the same time, not really. And it helps, trust me. Question number 3 then. Since we already have a filter setting for enemy ships in the overview, shouldn't we get a similar feature for NPC ships as well? We do. I noticed while ratting that we cannot filter rats by ship type, such as frigates from destroyers, unlike how we can filter out enemy players. I feel like this would also be a nice suggestion, as it can help pilots narrow down targets easier in combat. Really? Like, I kind of get what you're saying, that you can't filter between NPC frigate, NPC destroyer, NPC cruiser, but they do have little icons next to each other, and it's not like PvE is at all difficult. Like, genuinely, I'm not sure this needs to happen. Would it be nice to have it as an option? Yeah, I think anything would be nice to have as an option. The more options you have, the better these things go, but dev time's a thing, right? And to me, that's just why. Who seriously wants this? Like, I get the person asking this question wants it, but who else thinks that this is something they would actually use? Or is it something the devs are going to sit there and add to the game and everyone's just going to completely ignore it? At which point, time could have been spent doing literally anything else. To me, this really feels like you don't need this. Like, you can scroll up and down easily enough and just look for the frigate icons or the frigate names. Like, by the time that PvE becomes at all risky, you should be comfortable enough to do that. I don't know, maybe that's just me? Maybe that's just me? I could be wrong, let me know in the comments. Currently, says Cloud, players can filter NP ships by elite and normal. Yes, I was going to say you can filter them in and out. Whether it's necessary to introduce more filtering tags is open for discussion, and genuinely, in my comment section, let's start that discussion, because I'm firmly is the wrong word, I'm strongly on the no we don't need this side, but I'm sure there's someone out there who could legitimately give me an actual valid reason about why this would honestly be pretty good. To me though, this is one of those quality of life changes, like adding ships and station containers and that will get added as a hey look, we're listening to the community whilst ignoring all the bigger questions, which is why I kind of get a little bit every time these little questions get asked, and I really think there needs to be more focus on those bigger questions. Pirates in the mining belt, for example, big question, big answer, big implication, big happy Benzie. Question number 4. Do you have plans to add some small ships this year from EVE Online and other items that are not yet available here in EVE Echoes? Cloud responds, more small ships and new gameplay modules will be added one after another. Stay tuned. Doesn't say when. Doesn't say this year or anything, so, you know, the question was this year. Cloud just says that we're going to add them. They have been saying this for a long time, and honestly, we do need things like a Rifter Assault, a Tristan Assault, you know, we need upgrades of those ships. I'm not going to go through the whole list. If you are paying attention to my content at all, you already know exactly which small ships we need. But again, the problem isn't the lack of ships. The problem is the lack of content for them. Like, awesome! They decide to add a Tech 9 or Tech 10. Probably Tech 10. Let's be fair, it's going to be Tech 10. They decide to add a Rifter Assault. Now, I'm going to be super happy that the Rifter at least is getting some of its deserved love. The most iconic ship in the game, right? And you can argue that, oh, but maybe this one's more iconic or that one's more iconic. Rifter is literally the icon that is used on Plex, it's used on the fitting screen. It's the most iconic ship in EVE, hands down. There is no arguing that one, and it is an absolute crime that it is relegated to a useless Tech 2 frigate in EVE Echoes that doesn't even do what it should really do. You literally get it in the tutorials, and about an hour into playing the game, you're already flying Tech 3 ships and then destroyers, and the Rifter is completely forgotten about forever, except for the memes. So yeah, I would be super happy to see the Rifter Assault get added. You know it's going to be Tech 10, because NetEase can't add anything that's, you know, for newer players, but ultimately, that's the only reason to add it anyway at this point. If you're just going to add the ships, then it kind of has to be Tech 9 or Tech 10, because otherwise, what is the point? Like, genuinely, why would you fly anything else? I see this as kind of being the equivalent of how we have, for example, the Cinnabal and the Stabber 2 will have the Rifter Assault and the Drumiel side by side, despite the fact that the Drumiel should be considerably faster than the Rifter Assault. The Rifter Assault should be a shit-ton tankier, because that's kind of what the Wolf is. But hey, I don't know. In my opinion, this is cool. I will be happy to see a Rifter Assault finally added to the game after 3 years of pestering the devs for it, pretty much on a weekly basis at this point in time. But without any content, it's just another PvP ship that kind of does the exact same thing that we already have. Wouldn't it be so much cooler if we could also add a load of content for small ships that people could start using earlier? And if you gated that content by, like, the ship type or even the tier, then suddenly you have a reason to fly all those ships. And then we should just get rid of the ship tree and rebalance everything like I've talked about in other videos, but hey, that's going way off topic. Just adding ships doesn't really fix anything, but I'm biased. I would also just be super happy to finally have a Rifter Assault before I quit the game finally. If I could just fly a Rifter Assault once, I think I could die happy. Question number 5 then. Can we get an update to high-sec encounters? Oh god, yes please. That would be amazing, something that makes them actually engaging and enjoyable. At the moment, Claralam, the only viable place to use the intelligent... Oh, okay, no, I thought you were asking for new content. I thought you were asking for actual meaningful PvE content. No, you just want it to not just be Claralam. Okay, we need more encounters to spawn in systems after a refresh throughout high-sec. They do. There is a little image on the official EVE Echoes Discord. If I can be bothered, I'll put it on screen now, but don't hold your breath about me actually putting it here, otherwise go look on the official EVE Echoes Discord. In the resources, player-made resources, someone has made a list of all of the high-sec islands. Claralam's just the best known one. There's a whole load for each of the different factions that do work to a certain degree. Claralam, as I said, is just the most popular. Cloud says, currently there are multiple systems that can spawn multiple encounters. Players are encouraged to explore and find out what those systems are. Again, attacking the question, not attacking the player here, because I get it, not everyone knows about these things. It does kind of irk me. Like, do your research. If you're gonna ask a question like this, do your research first. Look, I know we've got 6 rather than 4 this week, but Dev Q&A is arguably precious interaction with the devs. They don't do much interaction with the player base at all. So what little time we have, I really feel needs to be optimized to the best it can be. So if you want to sit and say, please add this, take a brief second, step back and just check it's not already in the game. Because like here, Cloud has decided that this is the question he wants to answer because it helps teach people that there are other systems out there like Claralam. And he's achieved that goal. It's a good use of a terrible question. Attacking the question here, not the player. But again, if you are going to ask a question, congratulations on getting your month of Omega out of that answer, by the way, do just please take a couple of minutes just to check if it actually needs asking in the first place. Question number 6 then, one of the main reasons why industry is in a rough spot, yeah, let's see what people say here, is not because of insurance model, thank God someone finally gets it, but rather the way minerals are harvested as well. Oh boy, I've got stuff to talk about here. Currently, just ratting alone provides you with mission ISK, bounty ISK, and reprocessable loots that turn into minerals up to the end tier ones. Please have reprocessing loots removed or changed and allow minerals to only be obtained through reprocessing ores. Yes, sort of. Yes. Like, I don't mind that reprocessing can, you know, create some of the minerals that we use for building ships. Genuinely, that's not a terrible thing. That said, does it need to be nearly as much as the game currently gives you? If you train reprocessing all the way to Expert 5, which, quite frankly, it's not a humongous skill compared to some of the others that you're probably going to train as a combat pilot, you probably should, because it gives an insane amount of minerals. Like, we worked this out that a battleship that is doing, say, a rattlesnake, that's doing brawling with a couple of auto salvages on there as well, and is looting as it goes, in an hour, it can make more reprocessing minerals than a coveter can. A Tech 9 coveter that is purely designed to harvest minerals doesn't make as many minerals per hour as a rattlesnake does. And the rattlesnake is already getting bounties and mission loot if it's doing missions, and getting commendations on top of that as well. Like, genuinely, that is too much of everyone's pie. Reprocessing needs to be turned right the hell down to the point where it is a bit of extra nice stuff on the side. It should not be anywhere near the situation it's currently at. Absolutely agree. Let's spend a moment on this as well, because I did have some interesting conversations this week that are worth pointing out. Now, in last week's Dev Q&A, I talked about induced demand, about how if you just increase the amount of ores that are required to build stuff, all that does is increase the demand on ores without reducing the supply. Ergo, you have a situation referred to as induced demand. Now, induced demand is a thing that is often talked about in regards to things like highway building, highway development. If you have a 3-lane motorway or highway or whatever going both directions, 3 lanes of traffic, and you find that that is gridlocked, it is just completely locked up 24/7. Like, look at those videos you see of Los Angeles and stuff like that. It can be very natural to say, well, what if we added more lanes of traffic? The trouble is, when you increase the lanes there, what you have is a load of potential demand sitting on the side. You've got a load of people who own cars but aren't driving them on those highways because those highways are always gridlocked. So as soon as you add more lanes, people start driving down and going, oh, it's nice that we've got all this space. And then everyone else looks across and goes, oh, there's more space. I can get back in the car and start driving that. And suddenly it's full of traffic again. And so it's easy to then say, well, let's add more lanes. And the same thing happens over and over and over again. That is what is called induced demand. You can look this up. I'm not making this up. There's a guy called Adam something on YouTube. That's his name. I've not forgotten. It's called Adam something. And he does some brilliant videos on this topic, and you can look it up in other places as well. It's been studied scientifically, for crying out loud. That is the exact same situation we have here, because what we have with ore belts is what's referred to as infinite potential faucets. It doesn't mean it's actually infinite, as many smart Alex wanted to point out. The ores are there, but, you know, people still need to harvest them, and that takes time. Yes, so it's not infinite. No. What it means is that if you currently have 10 people, all with Covetor 2s, they can get so much ISK per hour, so many ores per hour, right? If suddenly you need to double that, you just send out 20 miners. If you needed to triple that, you send out 30 miners. There is no upper cap on how many miners you can send out. Yes, okay, you might find that if you've got 100 miners in system, then all of the belts are going to be harvested instantly, but they also respawn instantly, so you can kind of just warp between them and there's very little loss. It is infinite potential. If you add more miners, the result is always more ore. That is just how that works. The more miners there are in the game, the more ore is harvested. There is no upper limit. There are brief pockets of diminishing returns before you start having to move out into other systems to make sure that, you know, people are actually clicking, and it's very, very minor. The simple fact is, if you add more miners, you get more ores. In EVE Online, there is a hard cap to that. You keep adding miners, and eventually you're going to clear every belt in your system, and those belts don't respawn until the next downtime. And if you've got enough miners that the downtime has just ended, everyone logs back in, and you clear that in an hour, that's 23 hours before you get to have it back, which means that there is no longer an infinite potential. There is an actual upper cap to the entirety of New Eden of how many ores can be harvested. It's an incredibly high cap, but what this does is it pushes people out into other systems, which keeps ore valuable. You're also reducing the supply. There is an upper limit on supply, and CCP can look at the theoretically possible maximum supply that EVE Online, the entirety of New Eden and J-Space, can give. And they can balance the game based on that, because they know how much ore can theoretically be harvested. If every player decided they wanted to log in and start mining, how much ore can be harvested in that 24-hour period before, you know, it's gone for good and until the next reset? That is something that helps balance. And people then said, but okay, we also have like infinite potential ISK faucets. Yes, that's also a problem. That is why Plex is constantly inflating, because the more people jump into a PvE system, like Claralam, the more people grind out that ISK, the more is created. Again, if you add a new Ratter to the equation, that is just more ISK added to the game, and more ISK in the game environment means inflation, predominantly of Plex, because Plex is based on the amount of ISK floating around in the current economy. The more ISK there is, the higher Plex goes. So ultimately, again, you can add all of these ISK sinks, like adding capitals and adding X-type modules and all this kind of stuff, but eventually there comes a point where people have got everything and they're still earning ISK. You cannot handle an infinite potential faucet. And absolutely, the people who turned around, and there were some brilliant answers, people who were like, okay, but what about this, and were actually engaging with the conversation. Those people I really enjoy talking to. If you're one of those people, please don't take any of what I've said personally. I genuinely enjoy those conversations. The ones I don't enjoy, the people go, actually, I think you'll find, and then proceed to shoot themselves in the foot. That's just frustrating for me. Especially since those people, when corrected, tend to be the ones who get most defensive over it, even though, I get it, text doesn't come across very well, and I can come across as a pretty smarmy git. I don't mean to be. Just, yeah. The point I'm trying to make here is, absolutely, best way to change industry right now is to reduce the faucets. That means we need to do something with belts spawning, we need to do something with reprocessing reductions, brilliant question, give that man a cookie, absolutely, and we need to add pirates to the mining belts because that forces a certain amount of, you know, friction there as well, which is a good thing. Anyway, the answer to this question, because goodness me, I've forgotten to read Cloud's answer, we will soon have a new round of data analysis for the relevant settings. We should be able to decide whether to make an adjustment based on the analysis. Cloud, simply put, the fact that I can tell you that a Covetor, a Tech 9 Covetor with full strip mining skills and full ore reprocessing skills doesn't make as many minerals as a Tech 10 Ratter does should be a... If that alone is not a red flag, I don't know what else to say. Reprocessing your loot should be seen as a bonus. Only as a bonus. Literally only as a bonus. but it's not. It's being seen as a kind of viable lifestyle, and I get that, because in EVE Online, salvaging is a viable career path. It's not in Echoes, because the skill books are missing for the most part, the ships don't exist, and the entire setup of what you can salvage just doesn't make sense comparatively. Salvaging is just auto-looting rather than, you know, turning wreckage into usable materials. Those rig materials just drop in the anomalies otherwise. But yeah, a lot of work that could be done there. The simple point is that I think at this point, NetEase needs to stop trying to treat salvaging as being a career point. It's not. It's just automatic looting. Therefore, reprocessing should be absolutely, I'm not going to say dropped, but it needs to be toned right the way down to probably about 10% of its current efficacy. Yeah, 10%. Let that sink in. Anyway, folks, as usual, all opinions voiced in here are mine and mine alone. I do speak with the devs from time to time, not as often as I used to, because they've decided that the Ivory Tower is a better place to be than talking with us plebeians, but there is a cool event coming. Check on the official Discord. Lots of cool stuff going on there. There's like a dev Q&A public setting happening where you can ask questions and see what's going on there. A lot of cool stuff, hopefully, can be found in that. I'm excited about some of the answers in this dev Q&A. Honestly, I'd love to know what you're excited about as well. Pop that into the comment section down below. Yeah, finally, unrelated news to EVE Echoes, just a big shout out in case anyone missed it. This week I got accepted into the CCP EVE Online partner program as well, which feels freaking fantastic. Thank you all so much for your support, watching those videos, and making the dream real. Anyway, happy sailing, and see you in New Eden!